So they let us know when we are.
Yeah, ma'am, just a second. Ma'am. We will be live in next 5 seconds, ma'am.
Okay. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you all are keeping fine, safe, and your families and your colleagues and their families and everybody is safe and they're taking all the precautions required for this for overcoming this pandemic of COVID. And we wish that anybody everybody has going through the process of vaccination as and when their turn comes in, and all of us are keeping safe. With a positive note in that in mind, that we are moving and overcoming this challenge and going forward towards the new normal, I welcome you all on behalf of the local initiative chapter of UA, along with the ISOC Hyderabad chapter, on a workshop on UA for globally connected internet. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, as we know that as the whole world is overcoming the challenge which is being caused by this ongoing pandemic COVID-19, one thing is very clear, that the internet and the ICT-based tools are the new normal. We have seen years of digital transformation happening in months, and months of digital transformation happening within few weeks. This is the power of internet, which this pandemic has further made us realize. When we talk about the socio-economic potential of the globe, it cannot be limited by imagination. There are things and things which we can achieve through this important, powerful tool. We talk about any sector, be it the healthcare, education, or even social welfare. It can be easily transformed via the internet, which can further expand its horizon, reaching millions. If I put it in a very simple words, in this digital era, the internet plays a crucial role as a socio-economic development tool for society. However, UA is a fundamental requirement for a truly multilingual and a digital inclusive internet. Until UA is achieved, it is not possible to provide a consistent and a positive experience for all internet users. Adding further, today one can have a GTLD with the name of a corporate or even with the name of a city or an institution. And these changes have opened a plethora of new vistas, exciting possibilities, and at the same time has come up with the new technological things which we need to be aware of to actually realize the potential and reach the masses. Understanding the importance of the same, Vicky Ayla has joined hands with ICANN to initiate the India local chapter of UA. Over the 2 years, Vicky Ayla has undertaken several initiatives for the digital development of the language industry, focusing on the areas like UA implementation and IDM. We have been collaborating with various partners across the spectrum for the development and expansion of Indic Internet and language technology sector of India. Further, in our efforts to promote multilingual internet, today we have collaborated with ISOC, ISOC Hyderabad chapter for delivering this important workshop for you all. We are thankful for ISOC for joining hands with Vicky Ayla local initiative chapter to have this opportune workshop for the benefit of the users. ISOC Hyderabad chapter has also taken several initiatives in this domain. And that's why we feel jointly we can take this cause of UA further within the country. Ladies and gentlemen, today's session is power-packed with sector experts which you can think about, be the industry leaders, global experts from the domain, or anybody. We have leaders with us like Mr. Anil Kumar Jain, he's a CEO from Nixie, Dr. Ajay Data, Chair USG ICANN. We have experts like Mr. Galileo, Vice Chair USG ICANN, Cairo, Egypt, Mr. Edmund Chuk, Chief Executive Officer at Dot Asia Organization, Hong Kong, and the subject matter experts, of course, like Mr. Nitin Walia, who is a co-chair of UA EAI, Working Group ICANN, Mr. Akshay Joshi, CEO ThinkTran, Mr. K. Mohan Raidu, President ISOC India Hyderabad Chapter, and Mr. Bala Prasad Pedigree, Secretary ISOC India Hyderabad Chapter. So you can see it is the mix of a good set of speakers who have joined us today to deliver the content on a very important subject, which we feel is very important with a country like India, which a population which you would like everybody to be part of this, I would say, the internet revolution or a digital internet revolution, so that we all can take the benefit of this important tool. And with this, without further taking time, I would now like to invite Mr. K. Mohan Raidu, who is the President ISOC India Hyderabad Chapter, for his remarks. Just few words about him. Mr. Raidu, an experienced director with a demonstrated history of working in the information services industry, skilled in SQL, Oracle database, requirements analysis, software project management, and data warehousing. Strong professional, graduated from Osmania University. Mohan currently serves as president of ISOC Internet Society India Hyderabad chapter. Over to you, Mr. Raidu. And welcome all the speakers. For the benefit of the audience, we have a couple of speakers who have joined in, and those who have not, they will be joining during the course of the workshop. We look forward to a really thoughtful discussions today. And thank you all for taking out time from your schedule. Over to you, Mr. Raidu.
Thank you, Mrs. Sarika. Sri Anil Kumar Jain, CEO of Nixie, Dr. Ajay Data, Chair of the UASG from ICANN, Mrs. Sarika Gulyani, Director of FICCI India, distinguished speakers, my colleagues in ISOC India Hyderabad chapter, and the workshop participants from all over the globe. Wish you good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. You are welcome to this UA workshop. Our chapter was inaugurated just 2 months back on April 10th. We have a governing board with 10 members, an advisory board with 12 members, and functional chairs for 9 committees. We have already become part of most of the related forums, such as UASG, ICANN, IETF, IAB, IGF, APR, IGF, IGF SA, and IGF USA, etc. We are regularly participating in activities with them. This workshop is organized by ISOC India Hyderabad chapter in collaboration with the UA chapter at FICCI India and the UASG. Congratulations to all the participants of this workshop. We are going to discover huge opportunity in the internet domain systems. Congratulations. Today we have with us Sri Anil Kumar Jain as our chief guest, who is the CEO of Nixie, the National Internet Exchange of India. We are fortunate to have him with us, who will deliver the keynote address. Today, internet caters to 2 segments. One is the devices. One is to the devices through IoT, and the other is to human beings for browsing and connecting with the websites. An urgent need has arisen for the internet domain systems to start its next generation. This is because in the present version of the Latin alphabet expressions, it is serving just 1/3 of the world population. That number is shortened by the billions of people who read and write in Chinese, Arabic, Cyrillic, Devanagari, and other scripts every day. Imagine the position of someone who doesn't speak English or doesn't use Latin-based script. He cannot use the internet. Next phase of internet is starting with the internationalized domain names, IDNs, and the universal acceptance. With universal acceptance, all domain names and all email addresses work in all software applications. With universal acceptance, the domain names and the email IDs can be in their chosen language in non-ASCII characters and scripts. It is estimated that there is a scope of $10 billion growth of revenue through the internationalized domain names. ICANN CEO Gaurav Marbi has said the other day at the ICANN 71 conference that the next round of new GTLDs, generic top-level domain names, should be less focused on the English-speaking world. We at ISOC India Hyderabad chapter have made UA as our focus area. We have entered into collaboration with the UA India chapter at FICCI India, for which Mrs. Sarika Gulyani is the director. While this is a simple understanding of the concept for an end user of a new TLD, this statement further branches out to multiple questions such as, will my domain name work in all platforms and applications? Will my email ID and a new domain extension get accepted on all websites and pass all the validation tests? Will I be able to use all the features of website irrespective of my domain extensions? These are some of the questions. The universal acceptance of all domain names and email addresses requires that every software is able to accept, validate, process, store, and display them correctly and consistently. This workshop provides you with the technical orientation of the UA concepts, UA initiatives in India, how to make a website UA ready, how to host a website on IDN, and the IDN emails. To make the universal acceptance a reality, there is a huge task ahead of the developer community, the email server admins and the registrars, etc. We at ISOC India Hyderabad chapter have made the UA as our focus area. We will be working closely with the developer community, the industry, and work on the UA projects. Participants of this workshop are welcome to become members of ISOC India Hyderabad chapter and become part of our UA community. UAG, the Universal Acceptance Steering Group, is a part of ICANN, working systematically to achieve the goals. They are working through 5 working groups. They are Technology Working Group, Email Address Internationalization Working Group, Communications Working Group, Measurements Working Groups, and the Local Initiatives Working Group. We from ISOC India Hyderabad chapter are part of all these working groups, and we are participating in their activities regularly. We are fortunate to have the head of this global organization, UASG, Dr. Ajay Deta, who is from Jaipur. He has accepted our invitation, and he will be delivering the keynote address. Thank you. Wish you a good value addition through this UA workshop to all of you. Thank you. Good day.
Thank you, Mr. Raidu, for sharing your thoughts on it, talking as a scope of UA, various working groups, and of course, partnering with the local initiative. Like I mentioned in my opening remarks, local initiative is a community-based program, and of course, we look for the partners so that we all work together jointly for the cause of UA. FICCI, being a chamber, I would say the 93-year-old chamber body, has taken this initiative along with the ICANN so that we can run this chapter along with the partners like you for the benefit of the country. And we are proud that we are happy and this work is going on in a very good direction, and we have lots of people who are joining in. In fact, for the benefit of the users, there is a whole chapter which is there. Of course, there is a membership which is open and is free, and we would like you to come and join us and contribute both in terms of your thoughts, in terms of your activities, and give your feedback as well for our things to take it forward. We feel that India as a geography has a lot of potential, and there are things which are being done in our country which needs to be brought at the global level, and also things which needs to be done so that we overall, like I mentioned, can take the benefit of the digitally inclusive internet in a truly multilingual sense. So keeping all these in mind, anybody who is watching this, this I would say the workshop, be it of anything in which you're working in, either the entrepreneur or business person, or even the I would say the technical fraternity or academia, we would be happy to have you work with us, because the application of UA is for everybody, and it's something which everybody needs to take it forward. With this, thank you, Mr. Raidu. We come to our next speaker who is joined in right now. Welcome, Mr. Edmund Chug. He is a Chief Executive Officer in Asia Organization, Hong Kong SAR. And I would like to say a few words about him. Mr. Edmund Chug is the CEO of, as I mentioned, of a Asia Organization. Edmund serves on the Executive Committee of Internet Society, Hong Kong. We serves as the Secretariat for the Asia Pacific Regional at Large Organization, popularly known as APRALO, and participates extensively on internet governance issues. Edmund also serves on the board of Internet Governance Forum, support organization IGFSA. Mr. Chuk led the initiative to create Asia, bringing together 29 official CCTLD managing authorities. .Asia became a successful non-profit known for its advocacy and regional development efforts and its technological achievements, like its historic Pioneer Domain program. Welcome, Mr. Chuk, and over to you. We look forward to hear your thoughts on the subject matter, and of course, specifically talking on the policy network on meaningful access, PNMA.
Thank you, Sarika, and good to thank you for having me, and very excited to talk about IDN, universal acceptance, and a lot of the concept about multilingualism and multilingual content on the internet. Sorry, I joined late, and I will probably have to leave early, and maybe speaking out of context. So please accept my apologies, but this is definitely a topic that that I feel greatly about, and I have been working for the last 20 years on IDNs and of course for universal acceptance, and we'll share a little bit about how it relates to the Sustainable Development Goals and why I guess the policy network on meaningful access is being put together at IGF to push this forward. So just putting it into context, one of the key aspects is, of course, to support small, medium-sized businesses. And in India, there are more than 2.5 million of these as micro and small, medium-sized business, but only a very small percentage, probably about 1/3 of them have a website and have domain names, and they haven't been really able to utilize the internet meaningfully. Although there is access, although they are able to get online with their mobile phones, one of the challenges is the ability to navigate the internet in their own languages. And local businesses, especially small businesses, use local language to communicate and use their own language to express their offline identity. So this is why I think it's particularly important for universal acceptance and how it relates to the local economy, and also how it relates to why I think it's important to have a network and a concept of how policy can push this forward. One of the things about domain names also is that it's a fundamental part of a brand at this time. Whether you are a small local brand or a big global brand, your name, how it's expressed on the internet, is very important. And that's why I think internationalized domain names is important. And also, domain name is more than just a name. It's also how users navigate the internet, and also how users search. One of the things that people don't appreciate enough is that your domain name is not just it's not just your name and address on the internet, it's also how people find you, because the search engine rankings go organically up if your brand name or your company name, and which is what your customers are looking for you on the internet, through Google search or other search engines. When they were trying to search for you, you have to have a name brand that matches what people search for. Even though today people still use a lot English alphanumeric domain names, but for searches, it's largely using local languages. Whether especially in Asia, the majority of searches actually is conducted in local language, and that makes a difference with domain names. And that's why it's important for small businesses, for people to be able to find them online, actually to also be matched with their own internationalized domain names as well. So this is, I think, an important part of the ecosystem of domain names. So it's not just a technical issue, it's also a social economical issue. One additional point about domain names is that it's a lot of people would think that you only need one domain name, especially for small businesses. One thing that I think is important to let businesses know is that, especially because your domain name is actually kind of like a location online, the larger businesses is actually using multiple domain names to drive traffic, just for, especially for small, medium-sized businesses as well. The whole point about, let's say, creating like chain stores offline is to drive traffic physically. And online, how you do that is actually drive traffic with multiple domain names and multiple web presence. And that also means that your IDN name, it could be one of many names. You know, it's just like your business card, for example. You might have your English name, English address, and so on, but you would also have your local name, and for domain names, you can have your local internationalized domain names and your localized email address as well. And I think these are the reasons why universal acceptance and the reason why multilingual domain names are important online, because they represent identities that connect with people online. And that's where the sustainable development goals come in play as well. This is increasingly an important element when we talk about internet governance, especially at the IGF and also in other places, because internet not only actually it is part of the solution to some of these issues, but internet and the infrastructure itself also needs to be supporting a culturally diverse and, you know, supporting the development and the protection of the heritage and those kind of things. So in fact, relating universal acceptance with the SDGs, I've identified a few, you know, just a few of the SDGs themselves. You know, for example, in infrastructure development, it has specifically goals on diversification. It has specifically on equitable access. It's not just providing access, but equitable access. It's also not just providing access to information technology, but it is to provide universal and affordable access. It's also to integrate the sustainability, the different aspects of it. Talks about diversity, talks about how the innovations need to be supported as well. And universal acceptance actually play into all of these goals. Not only that, because infrastructure is one part of it, part of the SDGs is also about education quality, about the equitable development of economic equitability. And here, the cultural diversity is very important. The local culture, multiple SDGs actually focus on supporting local culture and the local and protecting local heritage. And IDNs and universal acceptance is actually part of that, part of that whole ecosystem, if you will. And besides IDNs, of course, IDNs is just one part of it. It's the navigational part of it, but it's actually very important because it's not just your address, as I mentioned. It also affects search engine optimization. It affects how people actually find you online. But then, of course, another important thing that is not to be missed is, of course, local content. That's not, I'm not trying to belittle it, but obviously, I'm less of a, I have less experience in that area. However, what is important to note is that the prevalence of IDNs, I totally believe will drive local content, because if you have your website, your website name or domain name in Hindi, for example, it just makes sense to have local content, have a website in Hindi. If you have your email address in Tamil, it just makes sense that your information, you have Tamil information on your website to communicate with that part of the community. So I think another part of the equation, or actually part of it, and also a big part of what .Asia supports, is the participation from young people in this whole, I guess, movement. Sometimes people ask if IDNs has been discussed so long, universal acceptance for so long, and the way that I see it is that we need to really look at it as a movement, and young people's involvement is truly important. And we try to start young, so it's not just university, but all the way through education, I think is going to play a very important role in the whole universal acceptance and IDN movement. Here I give a little bit of a bit of summary and also my thoughts on what policy aspects may be useful for pushing IDNs and pushing universal acceptance. One of which is really find local contained communities, schools, universities, government departments. Just think about especially universities, right? I mean, when professors use EAI, the internationalized email addresses, and students are being given their own name in email addresses, and they send in homework, for example, it's a very contained community that the internet itself grew from. So I think that's one area that's very important in terms of policy. The other one, second one, is of course government procurement policies. I think this is myself and many other people have talked about that many times. If government procurement policies require UA or EAI, at least in terms of a roadmap, then that makes a difference. That changes the nature of the system integrators and what people would provide, the type of technology and the systems that are designed architecturally would take UA IDNs into consideration. And then the third and fourth, sorry, I have a typo there. Third and fourth, I think is very important, and that brings us to the policy network for meaningful access as well. Third one is really the education and curriculum update. Think about your high school networking curriculum. Today we have IT lessons in high school, even in primary school. Teach IDN as basic networking when they first access using domain names and email addresses, when they first understand them. Those curriculums should be updated and saying IDN is just as basic. I think that is going to, again, change the mindset and create a momentum and create a movement. And then, think about, of course, university curriculum. When the first coding curriculum, first networking curriculum that is being taught at schools, at secondary schools, at university, they should treat IDN not as an add-on, but when domain names are explained, how the DNS works, how email works, IDNs and EAI should be explained in the same breath. I think that is going to make a difference. And then finally, the SDGs is a very important part for the entire humanity around the world, pushing towards. And many people think that the SDG is really much only about the environment. It actually talks a lot about the cultural and heritage, and making sure that multilingualism and the different, we respect the different cultures and protect the cultures and give them equal footing in the infrastructure and business that is around the world. And I think IDNs in that case, again, plays a role, and that's why universal acceptance is important, regardless of whether immediate commercial demand is being felt. I do believe that there is latent commercial demand that is not revealed because universal acceptance is not fully deployed, but the protection of that cultural and heritage and multilingualism, I think, is equally important. So last but not least, I'll just bring up this. I think this was asked of me to add. This policy network on meaningful access was created at the IGF this year. In fact, the whole concept of a policy network is first being, well, it has been discussed for the last few years at IGF, and it's finally put in place this year. And there are two policy networks, one of which is focused on environmental, especially environmental impact of the internet, like how the internet actually impacts impacts climate change or the environment. This particular policy network is focused on meaningful access, and the way that it's framed is that meaningful access means not only providing raw internet access, but also providing a meaningful content for local stakeholders, because just because you have the internet doesn't mean that everyone can fully utilize it. Just because you have access doesn't mean people can fully utilize it. And localized content and localized commerce, localized e-commerce is going to be very important for people to actually being able to meaningfully access the internet. And of course, again, local content means local languages, and local languages mean that you also need to be able to allow people to access and navigate the internet and communicate through domain names and email addresses in their own language. And I'll touch on one final point, is that even though there may be people who think that people would just know how to type in English email address and domain names, that's easy anyway. But when you think about it, when we move to a vocal internet, when we move to a mobile internet, where people start navigating the internet with voice, then local languages are much more prevalent. When you talk to your phone, when you talk and navigate the internet with your phone using audio input methods, then IDNs and internationalized email addresses becomes much more natural. And I think this is also why part of this meaningful access means is supporting the universal acceptance of internationalized domain names and email addresses, but it is a little bit more. The policy network will also look into how to stimulate multilingual local content among the local stakeholders. So this brings me really to the end. Hopefully it has been a useful update on some of the things, and do participate at the policy network. Actually, you can subscribe to the mailing list through the IGF website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chuk, for sharing your thoughts on the PNMA, and we understand, of course, it's an important thing, and of course, talking about the 4 important areas which needs to be taken it forward. I'm sure this is something which we all have been talking about, that when you want something in your local languages, it's just not the content, but also the access. So, of course, the policy network for meaningful access has a key role to play in here. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. For the benefit of the audience, if there are any questions, you can just post it in the chat box. We can take up with the speakers later on, or even you can write to us. My colleagues would have posted the email ID in the chat box. You can write to us, and we'll be happy to take the questions offline as well. But we definitely look forward to all of your participation in this cause, which we all are taking together. So thank you, Mr. Chuk. And with this, we come to our next speaker. I'd like to introduce the next speaker by saying that, of course, apart from delivering a keynote address, he is the one who has been pioneering in multiple initiatives. His company has done a lot of work, and he's an Indian who has made us so proud by chairing a USG, which is Universal Acceptance Steering Group of ICANN. So he's no more other than but Dr. Ajay Data. He's an award-winning techno-commercial founder and CEO of multiple technology companies. His innovation and execution of software products like Bharat Singh, ZenPlus, SpamChow, DataMail has got users world over and won multiple patents. Recently, DataGen Technologies got global recognition for bringing first of its kind linguistic email address supporting email ID in Hindi, Gujarati, Tamil, Telugu, Marathi, plus 8 more languages. He has been investing and mentoring startups and very actively contributing to entrepreneurial ecosystem. He's regularly speaking on various platforms like TIE, iSpit, and of course, Vicky, and he plays a key role in our organization, being at the very leadership position. His recent product, Video Meet, got appreciated by Government of India. He became the first Indian to get elected as the chair of global organization and making us proud. For the same, I talked about Universal Acceptance Steering Group. Dr. Data is a managing director of Data Group of Industries and sought after leader by young entrepreneurs for mentoring and guidance. Thank you, Dr. Data. You've been able to join us. It's been very kind. And we have always been looking forward to work under your guidance to drive this cause. So thank you for sparing time. And today we look forward to hear your thoughts on a UA global perspective and introduction of UA. The virtual floor is yours. Over to you, Dr. Data.
Thank you very much, Sarika ji. Thank you very much. I saw doing your first inaugural event based on UA. You cannot believe that how much this entire world is working on UA, and I will soon start my presentation. But I must thank you to take up this UA as your first introductory event. Shows that how keen you are to really work on governance space and people online. So here is my presentation. I hope you can see my presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we are talking about universal acceptance, and since it is a first event of ISOC, I am assuming that we are addressing many people who have not heard about UA before. So it makes perfect sense for us to talk basics about UA and introduce what universal acceptance is all about. Universal acceptance has a vision and an impact. What is the vision? Vision is very simple in all software applications. I am going to tell you with examples. It's a simple one-line vision. It looks very simple. It looks, is it not already happening? What's new here? But I'm going to share some challenges which we all are facing, the world is facing. And why we should solve this problem as a vision statement. It is because we want to bring choice to the customer, bring competitiveness, and provide better access to internet and users to access internet as powerfully as we all are able to do. So here are some examples. If you can see, there are some examples of top level domain names, and there are some examples of email addresses. And it's a very important slide. So, and this summarizes the whole UA also to a large extent. So you can see the first example, bank.sbi. SBI is written as red. It is indicating that there's a new generic top level domain name. And there is a second example with a longer top level domain name with .accountant. It could be .accountant, it could be .professional, it could be .teacher, it could be .doctor, it could be anything. More than 3 characters domain name are longer top level domain names. And there are internationalized domain name, which is a domain name which is also live in the world. And obviously, once you have the domain names, you would have email addresses, and that will create more variants of email addresses. So you can see the ASCII at IDN and Unicode at ASCII. There are examples in front of you. And you can see even an Arabic email address. because Arabic email address brings another level of challenge because it goes through right to left. You write them from right side to left side. Normally we write from left to right. This brings another challenge of managing these domain names and email addresses. So what is universal acceptance? When you can say that you are ready. So with these 5 pillars, which you can see in the bottom of my screen, which is symbolizing accept, validate, process, store, and display. 5 pillars. What accept means? So let us take an example of ISOC Hyderabad. You will have a website. You will have a registration page where I can get a newsletter, for example. When I go to the website, can I key in only typing? I'm asking right now, can I type my Hindi email address ajay@data.bharat or any of the example which you can see below in front of my screen, just above that, all the 4 examples. In any of the format, can I type in that email address there? Because you have to remember, a programmer may have programmed the email entry field in such a manner that it will not allow you to type in a mixed script or a email, an address which is non-English or top level domain name to have only 3 characters. Because this is the general knowledge to people. This is where the knowledge comes into picture. So developer has to go back and see that he allows all kind of domain names and email addresses in that field. So accept is very important. Can it validate it well? Validate it as a valid email address, not an invalidate a valid email address. That's next check you have to do. Then process it well. So I am subscribing for a newsletter as an example. Can it process it and do whatever is required to subscribe me in the backend for newsletter? Can it store it well in the backend and then display it back whenever is required to me, wherever it is required to be displayed as a correct email address? If you are, or your website or your application is following all 5 pillars and you are ticking them, yes, it is working, then the website is UA ready. If 1 is missing or 2 is missing, then you are not UA ready. Of course, you will find many websites, and of course you all can go and check this, that your website is UA ready or not, or your mobile application is UA ready or not. That's a very simple check. You have the example of my email addresses here, and you will be able to see that these email addresses are the valid email addresses. If you can copy or type in these email addresses, send an email to me, it should reach to me. It will also test that your email client, what you are using, is EA ready or UA ready or not. There are some examples how the domain name looks like. You may be thinking it is just a calligraphic act. It is not. It is a valid domain name examples, live valid domain name examples, which are working and which are available for you to type in the browser and access a website. These are valid domain names. So it is a very good example to know how the internet is going to be in the future for those people who would like to access internet in their own language, in their own preferred language. So it's another example. What role we are trying to play. So you can see it's very clear from the top row and the bottom row, ready and not ready. So if I type in soap.organic, because organic is long top level domain name, the website must open. If it will be not ready if it doesn't open. If the domain name has non-ASCII characters, the website should open. This is another example. And you can see an email address which is in a script other than English. So it must validate and it should create whatever is required to do. If it doesn't accept, it means it is not a UA ready website. So this is a simple pictorial example to tell you what UA readiness is. So when you go back and check, you can remember this slide and see how to test this website. If the website is opening from your browser with a valid domain name, it must open a website if the website is ready. And if it is not, then the browser is not UA ready. And there may be many browsers which may not be UA ready right now. So it's a little bit of a scope. You should know why this is important. So 9.7% of email servers, only less than 10% email servers are potentially configured to receive an email from an EAI address. So you can imagine they don't support all the email addresses types, which I just showed you. It is very important to understand these are valid email addresses. They should work everywhere, and there are some applications which do not. So imagine a person who has his email address and it gets rejected. It will be a frustration, and we don't want broken internet. We want an internet flawless, works. Whenever I send an email, it must get delivered. That's our basic expectation, right? So everybody must have to upgrade the system, modify the system to support your readiness. And that's what is all about. The good news is, which is 98.3%, there are domain names, top level domain names, which has top level domain, which has TLD less than 2 characters, short level. So like .in in India, .us in America. Like that, these are accepted well to 98.3% websites globally accept these kind of domain name. So it's a good news that we are covering that part, but we are not very good at IDN and long top level domain names. UA works with the readiness and technology stack. So if you're a technical person, if you think that you can support the technology work in UA and you are interested to work in these things and you have a problem, UA can work together and work on readiness on any technology stack you are working on to ensure that your websites are UA ready. Every tool is not ready. Every tool may not support you with the functions or the libraries you require, but we are also working with the tool makers, with the standard makers, so that they make and modify the websites and make the tools which can help developers to make the UA readiness everything. What is community stakeholders in UA? This is very important. Already Mr. Raidu said about it, but you must understand that we work with the stakeholders. Who are our stakeholders? So if you are any one of them, you are our stakeholder, you can work with UA and you can work with the local initiative. As Mr. Raidu and Sarika are trying to drive this in India, so they are the person to approach and see that how do you align with ourselves. And if you want to work in a working groups at a central level, you are more than welcome. Technology enablers. It is very clearly written that there are people who are providers of software programming languages, tools like .NET, like .java, like Android, like Python. If you are into these platform providers, you are our stakeholder. Developers, the people who develop the softwares. Email software providers, like people who provide email software and services. Like us, we provide XGen software, like Google, which provides Gmail as a service, Microsoft as a Microsoft 365 as a service, and Microsoft Exchange as a product. And government policymakers, of course, we have policymakers who are very, very critical. Anilji plays a very important role, who is present with us, who is the CEO of Nixie, had been in BSNL in the past, as a policy. What policy we should do so that there are barriers can broken and billions of people come online. That's important. So these are, how do you participate with us? So these are the working groups: technology working group, EAI working group, measurement working group, communication working group, local initiative working group, and UA ambassadors working group. I will not spend these first four. This is very clearly visible, but let me speak a little bit about local initiative and UA ambassadors. Local initiative, when as a leaders and at a global level, we started thinking, can 4 people elected by around 600 people worldwide can decide what's happening in Korea or Kuwait or anywhere in the world? It is almost impossible for somebody what will work in Korea. So I decide something sitting in India. It is impossible. And if we start looking at people from there, it becomes too longer a timeline for focusing each region. So what we think is, we created a local initiative working group. Each region, if want to break a barrier in their country, in their region, they will form a local initiative, and UA as a community and leadership will support that by content, by funds, by technology support, by knowledge. We will support them. So you know best what works here. That's the reason Vicky and Sarika has taken up with the stakeholders in this to take up this initiative and lead this in India. That's so now Vicky knows it best. chapters all over, people are over, industries connected. So now you know what is required to be done in India to break the barriers and bring UA initiatives in India. Ambassadors. So ambassadors is very important. As UA, we always believe that there should be some people who could talk and influence people in terms of not telling about the benefits, but also a little bit about technical knowledge. So there are UA ambassadors applications always available on USG.tech website. If you are keen to become a UA ambassador, you can apply for it. UA leadership will take up this and appoint ambassadors. We have 3 ambassadors in India right now already, and we are looking for more who would like to work actively to become UA ambassadors and worldwide. If you are outside India, you can also apply and become an ambassador and take UA initiative in your region. That's my last slide. I would encourage everyone, you could install data mail app. You can go to these websites which are written in front of you and experience how an email address looks like. So if you are interested in a Tamil or a Telugu email address, you can get a completely free email address. Use this and test your applications for EAI readiness or UA readiness. This is the UA is an umbrella, EAI is a part of it. EAI means email address internationalization. As an example, I showed you, these are the examples. 4 examples of email addresses are called EAI. So if you want this kind of email address, like me as a ajay@data.bharat, you could have in any language of your choice and test your systems. And if they are not UA ready, make them UA ready. If I can appeal out of this ISOC Hyderabad workshop, those who are listening to me, you must be connected at least with one website, whether it is your own or your organization. If you can go back and check whether your website is UA ready or not, and you can work on that if it is UA ready, then you are solving the problem for millions of people online and also giving something beautiful to the world. Thank you very much, Mr. Maradu, for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Data, for, of course, for your powerful address where you talked about starting from the granular level about UA and what it's all being done at the UASG level, and then, of course, talking about the working groups, making people understand how they connect to it and why it is more important and what are the 5 areas which they need to look it out to say that they are really UA compliant. And, of course, then talking about the support which can be provided to them through our local initiative chapter. So we are very thankful, and of course thankful to you for guiding us and mentoring us for this initiative. It is of course the support of and the leadership of people like you, we've been able to perform our activities for the country. And for the benefit of the audience, like Dr. Data mentioned, please do try. The email address is a free AI, which is being given both on the mobile and the web server. And anybody, and if anybody feels any difficulty, if they feel any hand-holding is required, please write to the local initiative. We would be happy to help you out in that. We would, of course, connect you to the right experts. So we'll provide you all the assistance required so that you can actually be part of this whole, I would say, real beneficiary, as well as the part of the UA community, as well as can drive others and your peers also to become part of it. So thank you, Dr. Data. With these words, I would now like to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Anil Kumar Jain. He is a CEO for Nixie. Thank you, sir, for joining us today and sparing your time. As, of course, behalf of this workshop organizers, as well as from the FICCI LIA, we know that we work very closely with Nixie, and we feel Nixie has a very important role to play, and this objective can't at all be realized without the support of Nixie. So as FICCI, we are thankful to Mr. Jain and of course the team from the Nixie, through which we drive the digital development of the Indian language sector, including focusing on the, I would say, the IDNs, EIs, and of course the whole UA cause. Just a few words about Mr. Jain. He is currently the CEO of Nixie, that is National Internet Exchange of India. Having spent 36 years in various telecommunication roles, Mr. Jain is an expert in the internet, broadband, and telecom sectors. Some of the organizations he has been associated with include BSNL, MTNL, and the Department of Telecommunications, India. Mr. Jain was on the board of Nixie for over 12 years before he took up the role of a CEO last year. His aim is to make the internet accessible and beneficial to every individual in our country. So with this, I would say, a very, very strong aim and a vision for a country which is such a big population. We really look forward to hear the thoughts from our keynote speaker, Mr. Chair. And thanks one again to the team Nixie for supporting us. Over to you, Mr. Chair.
Good morning to all of you. Thank you, Sarika. Dear Ajay Dattaji, Chair, UASG, President, ISOC, Hyderabad, Mohan Raidu Edmund, who spoke before Ajay, Nitin Walia, and all the panelists and the listeners who have joined today. Good morning to all of you, and I hope that all of you must be doing good, because this is very difficult time for all of us. We are passing through COVID. The whole world is passing through COVID, and we had a difficult time. And I think I must congratulate ISOC Hyderabad for bringing up this workshop at an apt time, and which is required for the country like India and for the whole world also. See, India is a population of approximately 1400 million people, out of which around 900 million people are living in the rural area. At present, more than 50% of us are on internet. That is what the official figure says, 795 million sharp, exactly. Out of which approximately 270, 280 people are on internet from the rural area. Another aspect which is very important is that 90% of these internet users, they are using internet, consuming internet, using mobile. And another thing is that 85% of the educated population of India are non-English speaking. But at the same time, you know what, I was reading the content of the presentation of Edmund, you know what Gandhi has said, what Windsurf has said, is that every citizen of this world should get benefit of internet. Every citizen, you know, whatever the revolution we are able to get is very, very important. Now, the new technologies like artificial intelligence and IoT, which are now coming on internet, are expected to improve productivity of the nations and improving the efficiency of every citizen. I personally feel internet is a critical tool which can make India as a developed country. And I want to remind to all of us today that we are aimed to become the third largest economy of the world by 2025. And I also believe that 25% of that GDP should come from the digital economy. So that should be the aim which all of us are looking at, which all of us should have. Today we are talking about universal acceptance. When we are talking about universal acceptance, naturally the IDN CCTLD comes into picture and in mind of all of us. That is what Edmund has also said. I am very happy in a country. I am a citizen of the country which has IDN in 22 official languages, and this is the highest in the world. And whenever there is a discussion in IGF or there is a discussion in ICANN or CCNSO regarding IDN or UA, I am happy that India is talked about, because India has taken a pioneer role in getting 22 official languages as IDN CCTLD. And not only taking, I think we have implemented all of them. All of them are available with us. So now looking at what is a universal acceptance, what Ajay has said, the simple thing is that whatever I am sending in any language, which is other than English, the recipient should be able to get that content in the same language, in the same font, in the same structure. And if we are able to get these things, various layers, which Ajay has explained, universal acceptance is done. And that is what the aim of UASG, that is the aim of all of us, we are doing it. Another thing which I spoke to FICCI platform also previously and I on CCNSO platforms also, I believe that if we have to express ourselves, whenever we are expressing ourselves, we express and we feel more comfortable to express in our mother tongue rather than an adopted language like English, or maybe for some people, maybe Hindi. No, I always give an example that whenever we go to the doctor, we try to talk in a mother tongue. And that is why I think that if internet has to grow and if contribution of each and every one of us has to go to internet, adoption of local language, internet in adoption in local language is very, very important. I think it is very clear that what universal acceptance is trying to do is two things. Number one, to accept and make everything like right from the keyboard, the software, the mobile application, the computer application, the transmitter, which takes you from the transmitter to the receiver, and acceptance at the receiver end, a universal acceptance. And that is for two things. Number one, in case the domain is available in more than 2 character, 3 character, 4 character, 5 character, if the domain is available other than ASCII. And the third thing is that like Arabic or Urdu, starting from right to left rather than left to right. I hope that a layman like me has understand these particular things very importantly. So I think all of us is working on this direction. And one more thing which I want to emphasize is that today we are 795 million internet users. And if we want another 500 million, which will make almost 90% of we Indian using internet, then universal acceptance is the catalyst for bringing internet to the people and making another 500 million with us. Now let us see about what NIXI has done. Because all fundamentals will be spoken by the experts. I'm not an expert in that. One is that we have made IDN available in U level since 2019, along with A level. Second, when a registrar is getting on board with us, we are asking them to make a UA ready by testing their system, sending email to us in all 22 languages, receiving the email from us. We are also writing a letter whenever a registrant is getting registered with us. We are writing a letter to them saying that you kindly test websites, emails, wherever you are communicating as UA ready. And to support them, NIXI has opened a helpline number, a helpline email. In case anybody is facing problem, they can dial us and they can take help of us. Another initiative which we are now working on it is to create a task force which is a joint efforts of NIXI, Government of India and community like FICCI. We are working on this and we are promoting that UA should be adopted by web designers, email providers, mobile app developers, software developers, content generators, all of them. And also we want to take the training workshops and awareness campaign in the whole system to make this possible. Like Harish is here with us, we want to have more and more UA ambassador who can physically go to various regions, talk to all these people which I have listed, explain to them how their system has to be UA ready, force them to get the things UA ready so that the whole country become a part of this particular process. I'm very happy that not only the people like you and me, but governments have started working on this. Karnataka government has adopted local working in Kannada language, and Ajay was part of the inaugural day on that particular day. Rajasthan government has distributed the email in Hindi to large number of population free of cost. Honorable Prime Minister has inaugurated the email in local languages. Recently, I think the two apps which are being talked very frequently and is Arogya Setu app and CoWIN app. Both of them are getting developed in local languages. Another things which is related to the government is the government e-marketplace that is called GEM, where billions of dollars purchase and sale and purchase happens on every month basis. It is available in 7 languages. They are making it in all 22 languages. To support development of IDN, we are providing a free IDN domain to all the people who are registered with .in. We are also providing a free IDN email to all .idn domain users. So these are small things which we are doing. And if you say at the global level, I personally feel that there is some requirement which is, I think we all has to work together to see that ICANN WHOIS should be UA ready, right? At least that organization which is promoting all those things, their all systems should be UA ready. Then big players like Twitter, Facebook, Amazon, Alibaba, eBay, LinkedIn, let us try to make them UA ready. You know, if the whole ecosystem become UA ready, then only if you are ready, but the outside world is not UA ready, we may not be able to take benefit of it. Finally, I urge, in case it is possible, that either ICANN or IGF, I think Ajay Data is listening, if we can have a UA ready index of the countries, and that index should be published on regular basis, saying that this country is so much percent UA ready, this country is so much, like Ajay was talking that this email is, is accepted in local languages, this email is accepted in local languages and all those things. Can we have a UA readiness index for the country so that it motivates the people, it educates the people and help the whole ecosystem to be UA ready? So friends, all the best for the workshop, and I hope that a lot of list is there who are ready to work and guide you how to create a email UA ready, how to get a website UA ready. And if I would have a time, I would have loved to join those workshops, but it is wonderful. And again, I congratulate Vicky and the ISOC Hyderabad chapter for organizing this workshop and giving me this opportunity to be with all of you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your words and obviously for the encouragement and the work which Nixie has been doing and making us proud. We really feel it's an important thing. We talked about the helpline number and email ID. That's really, really, really nice. And of course, we will be working with you on the task force and the various awareness generation and training programs which are required with the support of the community, definitely. Vicky is committed to that, and we are really thankful to you for sparing your time from the schedule and joining these initiatives. Your presence really motivates us. It really helps us to take the next steps together with you. So that's very, very helpful. So thank you, Mr. Jain, for your time, and thank you. Really thankful. We will be taking up next steps with you soon. So that's something. And for the users, like Mr. Jain has mentioned, there's .in IIT and this thing, email ID and the domain name, which is being given by Nixie. Please take the benefit of it. And I've been mentioning it since starting. If there is any problem which you feel in, we'll be happy to help you out. We'll be happy to do that. There have also been established helpline numbers and email ID. Apart from that, we are also there to support you technically, whatever help you require from our side with the help of our experts. So thank you all.
Sarika, before you go to second one, I just want to announce that tomorrow Nixie is celebrating the Nixie Day. Nixie was born 18 years back on 19th of June. I invite all the listeners and panelists to be part of us. Tomorrow we are organizing a webinar at 10:30 where Secretary Mighty is the keynote speaker and the chief guest, speaking on digital economy, which is related to all of us. Increasing the footprints of digital economy in the country. And we have panelists like APNIC executive chair is the APNIC, then GM of APTLD is then TVR of BIF is the panelist. So I request all of you, I'll ask my team to give a link on this chat so that you can register yourself and part of this big celebration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chen, and congratulations for the same. I'm sure many of us, including the panelists and audience, would be happy to part of the celebration. Look forward to hearing the thoughts tomorrow as well. So, in any case, congratulations to the team Mixi for the same, and thank you, sir, for joining in. So, with this, we'll come to the next speaker. I now invite my colleague, Mr. Bala Pedaguri, to carry forward the proceedings and invite the next speakers. Bala, over to you.
Thank you, Sarika. And we all had a very exciting set of package of explaining about the universal acceptance, about how email addresses are getting internationalized and accepted everywhere. And we have wonderful speakers coming in the form of Edmund Chung, Ajay Teta, and Anil Kumar Jain, who has really set the context and guidance for us to take it forward, the whole journey. Now we have Nitin Walia with us, who is going to speak to us on UI initiatives for within India. Nitin Walia has over 20 years of experience in email, internet technologies, and security. He is currently a director at Data Exchange Technologies, a company which is well known for making the first fully AI-ready email software available while serving over 50 million email users worldwide. Walia has advocated for EAI and IDNs for years, and he has delivered over multiple presentations and workshops on both national and international platforms. He regularly attends ICANN public meetings, IGFs, and works closely with APTLD, that is Asia Pacific top-level domains, and is also on the NASSCOM Product Council and part of National Committee to develop a model RFP template for software products under NPSP in India. As the UASG EI Working Group Vice Chair, Nitin wants to build on the good work accomplished thus far and increase UA awareness and EAI. Welcome, Nitin, and over to you for your presentations on UA initiatives in India. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Bala, and thank you, Sagarika. Thank you, Mr. Raidu. And I think a lot of things has been given by our keynote speakers, actually. So my advance apologies to everyone in case if I'm repeating something into my presentations. But yes, because the topic given to me is to talk about the UA initiatives in India. So a lot of things have been briefly talked about by Mr. Jain also on them. So I'm just going to elaborate them up in my presentation. And I think the chair of UASG, Dr. Ajay Kumar Deta, has briefly told you about about the UASG initiatives and what UA is. So here's my presentation. Okay, I hope the screen is visible to you all.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Thank you so much. So, what UA is in a nutshell, actually. So, we have the entire technical definitions and everything as a layman. So, as far as the UA is concerned, UA is Internet for All. So when people comes from across the world in various languages, the domain names and the email addresses plays a critical role. So here the USG is to fulfill those gaps and ensure that the entire community across the globe can have an access over the internet. So what are the real benefits when we talk about UA? We are talking about an opportunity of almost $9.8 billion. So when you all go back, almost in our 2020, so when we all are hit by Y2K, there was an opportunity which pops up into the market, and same way now with UA, there is another opportunity for all software developers, all software products to become UA ready, because the market size is huge, the opportunity is huge, and the target audience are also huge. And when we see that, the next wave of the internet users which will be coming on board, that would be from the local languages. So ultimately, if you are talking about addressing a large opportunity, that will definitely be addressed if you are UA compliant. When we talk about the benefits of UA, if UA is left unaddressed, business and organizations will face a potential loss of revenue. So until unless you don't become UA ready, you are somewhere losing the customer satisfactions, and you are somewhere losing the market opportunity, which will be coming to your doors in millions of dollars actually. So when you talk about connecting to the next billion users, that is if you are UA ready. If you want to bring a better accessibility to the world via internationalization of the internet, that is UA. Enabling culture, society, and economics, it can be done only by UA. If you want to deliver better UI, UX, resulting to the customer satisfaction and retention into their local languages, that is all possible if you are UA ready. If you want to responsibly comply with the standards, then UA will play a major role into your applications. If you want to provide uninterrupted support to the users of new domain names, like in India, we had 22 odd languages domain names. Now, if somebody is coming from Kannada, or somebody is coming from Gujarati, or somebody is coming from Punjabi or Bangla or Hindi, which is in Devragni, if your website contacts us, do not support him to submit his email address, you will lose that customer, because that customer who is owning that particular email address will understand that you are not supporting the latest advanced technologies. So ultimately, it will reduce your customer support burden if you become UA ready. When you talk about organizations globally, Microsoft, ICANN, Google, .Asia, Action Plus, Appling, GoDaddy, Affiliates, Thynic, and so on, there are organizations who are already engaged, who have gauged this opportunity that yes, it's $1 billion opportunity which is lying on all our tables, and we all have to take our pie out of it. So if the sooner we do it, the better opportunity we will be able to get out of it. Like Dr. Data has already shared with you about the UA verbs, which is accept, validate, store, process. So I'll not be taking much of your time onto it, because this is being clearly made understood to you all. So here I am. Basically, when we talk about the initiatives which has happened in India as of now, the Indian internet market potential, because when we talk about India, it is Indic actually. So India has almost 600+ million internet users, and the number is rapidly growing because of the ease of access on the smartphones, as Anilji has mentioned you, that majority of the users who are connecting over internet are connecting through smartphones these days. There were the days when the 2G and the 3G connections were very, very expensive. But now when we are moving into the world of 5G, already the internet packages are so cheaper on your smartphones that everybody is connecting on the smartphones with their social network, with their email addresses, and browsing, and even watching Netflix and all those stuff. So things are moving more from desktops and laptops to the smartphones. And that is where the rural penetration of internet is happening, because the rural India, they might not have the dedicated internet at the home, or they might not have the dedicated PC or the laptop with their children's and their own, but yes, they have the smartphones. And we all have seen that during this pandemic time, the entire education system is running over mobile phones. The students sitting into villages, the students sitting into the rural India are getting educated during this pandemic time when the schools are not open for them. They are taking their remote classes, and those classes are going over the internet through these smartphones majorly. Imagine if during this pandemic time, if this revolution would not have happened, that the smartphones has reached to the rural India, what would be the future of the Indian students? How they would be coping up with their studies, and how they would be, fighting with this pandemic time and not losing the education opportunities. Everybody would be just sitting in the homes for almost last 18 months and doing nothing. Even when you talk about the households, majority of the televisions are moved from DTS to your Netflix and other OTT platforms. All this has happened because of the penetration of the internet, and the internet has reached to every home of this country. So it is for further estimate that next 5 years we have 500 million internet users, which will be added to this number. And that's the reason you see that the large giants like Google, when they are publicizing and when they are putting up the advertisements in India, they say don't type, bol ke dekho. So you can speak into your local language and search over the internet. That is what is available. Hence, it is very important that the internet users across the amount of content we have in India, it's just one person. So clearly there's a huge market potential which is available. And not only the international players, but even the Indian companies are now gauging this opportunity to ensure that they are able to get their pie out of it. So when we talk about the overview of initiatives in India, so the local initiatives are spread by the Indian Language Internet Alliance, which is a part of FICCI. So UASG and FICCI is taking these initiatives in India and reaching to the community, reaching to the academia, reaching to the technology people, government, and working towards greater adoption of Indic support scripts for the content development in India. The priorities, the key focus are the local initiatives in India is to be catalyst for the change and to help stakeholders take the next step to be UA ready. Few of the initiatives which has already happened in India from past almost 1 year since FICCI has joined the UA local chapters and UA initiatives is the introduction sessions has already happened into the important language computing technologies during the global health crisis, which has attended by almost 80 participants. The UA awareness sessions has happened. Multiple US awareness sessions have been done in various parts of the country with FICCI and UA together, and almost 100 plus students in every 100 plus participants in every session has been attended even during these pandemic times. Technology workshops, multiple technology workshops have happened across various parts of this country, wherein the technical experts have joined in. And then we have multiple sessions and UA internet language technology sectors in India, which is which is attended by multiple participants. So when we talk about universal acceptance in India specifically, things cannot move until unless we do not have support from the government. And yes, luckily that when you talk about UA adoption across the globe, India was one of the prime country which has given the major role in the UA adoption. It is not because we have 22 odd languages. Like Anilji has said, India on a global economy and at a global platform has always been a buzz talk because it is a country which is handling the largest number of domain names. And it is a country which is full of multiple languages. So when we have multiple languages, still we are one country with various languages. So as it's been said that it's the only country which is having ideal domain names into 22 odd languages. Improved access to the services for the people with limited English proficiency has been done by the government. Biggest government marketplace like GEM has been converted into all local languages, which is presently in 7 right now, but it's now getting converted into all 22 odd languages. Government initiatives like National Language Transmission Program is already on. And not just that, government has already taken a forte, and in various government tenders now they're adopting the UASG best practices, which has been written off for the government procurements. So the major government procurements which are happening in India now, in the government sectors, they are asking for UA readiness into their applications, which means that any new application which government would be seeking, they are looking forward for the UA readiness into those applications. Few of the EAI initiatives which have already been taken by the government of India. Honorable Prime Minister has already launched an email address mail.patata.para, which was majorly for the education vertical. Government of Karnataka has already move ahead and done the adoption for the local Kannada language. So now they are ready to communicate with their community into local Kannada email addresses. And these email addresses are now getting provided to all the officials into their offices so that they can communicate into their local language. Government of Rajasthan has in fact moved one step ahead. they have not only given the email addresses to their own officials, but they have also done a project wherein they have given almost 20 million citizens of Rajasthan are already getting benefited by the email address provided by the government of Rajasthan. So they have their own communication platform. And trust me, during this pandemic time, this communication platform has played a major critical role for the government, because the email addresses are being configured through a mobile app onto the local citizens' mobile phones. So it becomes so easy for government to communicate and transmit any kind of information during this pandemic time of COVID, when vaccination will happen, where vaccination will happen, what all the policies government is doing, what are the lockdown policies which are there, what are relaxations are coming in the lockdowns, all kind of notices, notification, communication, chief minister messages were being broadcasted on these email addresses to the citizens of the Rajasthan, which has helped the state to communicate in the lowest economical format, because where other states were putting more money over publishing on the television, publishing to newspapers, that thing was also happening in Rajasthan, but parallelly over the internet, they were having their own email platform through which they were communicating and giving the alerts to all the notification to all the citizens. In fact, this case study of Rajasthan was being publicized by UASG. UASG has done a case study of government of Rajasthan, and this was been published globally as the largest initiative taken by any government as of now across the world on this large scale. Not just that, as Anilji has mentioned, that Nixie has also stepped ahead and they have taken an initiative, and now they are providing free email address with every ID and domain name. No registry in the world has taken such kind of initiative that they want to give it free of cost to every ID and domain name. It is a think tank of Anilji that he adopted that and given it to the community and given it to all the users in India. So anybody in any language, all 22 languages, the email addresses are available on all 22 languages, ID and domain names via Nixie. So if you want to spread the awareness of UA, there are various materials which are available on the UASG website. There are blogs, there are case studies, there are programs, there are UA evolution studies, slide decks, presentations. Everything is available on UASG.tech website. Moving forward, if you want to test your email address, just do one thing: download Data Mail mobile app on your mobile phone, and you can have a hands-on experience. You can create an email address in all the languages available, not just in India, but into various international languages like Russian, Chinese, Korean, and so on. So the Data Mail app is providing you the facility to test your systems that they are EI ready or not. You can create an email address over that, and you can test it in India actually very easily. You can report the problems of other applications. You can join and participate in UASG discussions. You can ask if you are from the government vertical, you can ask your procurement agencies and procurement departments to quickly look for the quick guide of the tendering from UASG and ensure that your procurement process adopt the UA adoption, so that any new software or application you are buying in future is UA ready. So if you want to get involved, there are multiple ways. You can just simply drop an email to uaprogram@icon.com and you can join any local initiative. You can join any working group. We have multiple working groups of communication, EI, measurement, and technology. We have weekly and fortnightly calls which happen across the globe, and all the community members join and work closely on various initiatives that UASG is taking on. You can follow on UASG social handles like Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can check your own systems whether they are UA ready or not. You can check your email systems whether they are EI compliant or not. And everything is available on UASG.tech website. Not just that, there are various resources and tools for the developers which are available on the USD.tech website, so which can help you to become UA ready. And that's it from my side. Thank you so much. And these are all my live email addresses. In any language you want to reach me, you can reach me. Thank you so much.
That's awesome, Nitin, for sharing so many email addresses to reach you. And thank you for illustrating the purpose and benefits of universal acceptance that really justifies where we want to visualize the world where anyone can be empowered to use any domain or any email address from any part of the world for their personal and business needs. And your entire talk really provided us the market potential, which is a key, and it is also provided us a possibility to explore how internet penetration has really created a reach across the world through penetrating within the rural sectors of India. And the initiatives like local initiatives, which are spearheaded by FICCI in the form of Indian Language Internet Alliance, your awareness sessions, and some of the context associated to your work in government, which is driven by the government of Rajasthan and Karnataka, really gave a good insight. And definitely a definite good tip that one free email address with every ID and domain by Indian registry as part of NICSI is really, really helpful. Thank you, Nitin, for enlightening us on some of the cool initiatives which are happening within the India with respect to universal acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bala.
Now, we are lined up with the next speaker, and who is going to touch upon how to make website universal acceptance ready. Abdul Manim Galila is with the .masr internationalized domain name country, code top level domain, what we call CCTLD of Egypt. He's a strong supporter of universal acceptance as well as the use of the Arabic script on the internet. Mr. Galila has been a UA ambassador since March 2018, helping to coordinate many regional sessions and trainings in Egypt, and is also the UA Ambassadors Working Group Chair and Email Address Internationalization Working Group Vice Chair. Additionally, he is the Vice Chair of the Middle East for the Task Force on Arabic Script Internationalized Domain Names, which focuses on the secure deployment and ease of use Arabic IDNs. Galila also serves as the Universal Acceptance Senior Advisor for the Tanzania Community Network Alliance, helping to promote UA in academia, and Galila currently based out of Cairo, Egypt. Now over to you, Mr. Galila, on the how to make website UA ready. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Could I share my screen?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you. I hope you could see my screen and my voice is clear and loud.
Yes, we can.
Yeah,
we can
thank
see
you,
the
Nitin.
screen.
Yeah, actually, most of the things already covered during the presentation of Dr. Ajay and Mohan and Nitin about the 5 criteria of universal acceptance readiness. But let me explore the agenda for my presentation for today. I know that I am out of time, but I will try to fit in my allowed time, inshallah. So I will start by housekeeping the item, like what universal acceptance cares about. It is important for me, especially that universal acceptance doesn't care only about IDNs or ERs, but also for the new generic top-level domain names, whatever it is, IDN or ASCII, whatever. And what are the targeted systems away from the website? Website is a small part of our targeted system for universal acceptance. Many applications and services are not being updated to manage these new top-level domain names or email addresses as well. This affects as well for user experience. There are 2 terms of UA. When I was working for IBM, it is called user acceptance. But now we are talking about universal acceptance. User acceptance is for software developer in order to make his software application fit the needs of its customer, specific customer. But for universal acceptance, it means universe. All the world could handle this, could use the domain names and the email addresses consistently with any application or any services published online. So I will go for on fly for the five verbs criteria of universal acceptance. And of course, the main vision and dimension is the same. And all valid domain names and email addresses should be accepted, validated, stored, processed, and displayed correctly and consistently by all internet-enabled application devices and systems. And then go to what are the areas we care about, especially for the website, the main topic for today. I will talk about the areas front end, back end, the database drivers, and the database, and then finalizing my session with the references. And I think it's already covered by my colleagues of University of UAG, and I will leave the floor for you again, sir. So for some housekeeping, what I said about that universal acceptance doesn't care only about IDNs, but also for new generic level domain names, whatever it is, short or long. Now, before for CSD, it limits to characters, and for generic level domain name, it was limited for 3 characters. Now it is over. Now the top level domain is up to 63 characters. 60 characters, 60 ASCII characters, not Unicode characters. I will explain the difference after a while. And also, universal acceptance cares about international domain names. I couldn't pronounce this Hindu's one, and this is not must for Arabic, and also for email address internationalization, whatever its types as described by Dr. Ajay. What are the targeted systems of universal acceptance? Uh, the main 2 points is the domain name and the email addresses. So there are some questions you have to ask yourself about. For example, for domain name, you have to ask yourself 2 questions. Does my application is multilingual application? Maybe it is somehow difficult at the moment, but most of the modern websites use the reference buses inside the web pages to refer to the pages that will be displayed for the images that will be displayed inside the page. If the relatives bus couldn't understand this IDN bus correctly, the images will not be displayed. So it is important to have this here. And the second question, does my application have forms that have a domain name field? This is for domain name. And also this is for the website, and for maybe my application trying to read or write email domain names from a file, read from a file for a domain name and write a domain name inside the file. Or maybe my application is trying to exchange domain name on the wire between two different online services, or through a remote object like RMI and Corba, something like this. For email addresses, we have similar question, by the way. So for email addresses, you have to ask yourself, does my application have forms that have email address field? Does my application is trying to send emails or receive emails from users? For example, every website now, you have to subscribe, for example, for the news. So a subscription, maybe I am going to subscribe with my Arabic email address, with my Hindu email address. So it will fit at the targeted system for universal acceptance. And of course, does my application is multilingual application? It's consistent that you have, for example, Hindu domain name to Hindu content website, and subscribe to the newsletter for this website using your Hindu email address. As other side for file and online services, maybe your application is trying to read email address or write email address to a file, or exchange the email address on the wire between 2 remote objects or between 2 services already published online. Let's see, apply for the 5 criteria of universal acceptance, which are discussed well by Dr. Ajay and my colleagues Nitin and Mohan. There are 5 verbs of universal acceptance: readiness, we have accept, validate, store, process, and display. So when you identify the targeted system, you should comply which completely with these 5 criteria in order to be certified for universal acceptance readiness. So what are the details for each one of these criteria? I will explore all of this, and I have some examples. I don't want you to be confused about the technicality. My background is technical, so forgive me for that. So in action for universal acceptance, 5 criteria and example that I at my agenda I said that what are the areas I should care about. So we have for the website we have 2 areas, important areas. We have the front end and the back end. I mean by front end the GUI that will be displayed as the user machine. The backend is the server component that will be inside the remote server that will be accessed by front end interface. So both of these have different points you have to take you have to care about in order to make both of them universal acceptance readiness, especially the time you are delivering. For example, maybe you are delivering certificates for your clients. So in order to give certificate to your client, you have to validate the domain name. You have to validate this domain name is the syntax is correct, and already this domain name already in the DNS before issuing the certificate. So let's go in details for both of these areas, step by step. These examples here, let's one by one. For accepting occurs whenever an email address or domain name is added to your web form from the client or exchanged from online service to another online service. For example, here in the screenshots, the 4 screenshot here, we have I think it is Hindu domain name and Hindu email address. The other one we have domain name and email address that uses new generic top level domain name .pharmacy, and we have also UEG.tech. This is new generic top level domain name, and we have Arabic one scale.mas and Arabic email address. So your application should accept these types of domain names and email addresses. May you are trying, as said by Dr. Ajay, may you are going to add your domain name and your email address as at the online application, it will be claimed that this is not a type of correct domain name, this is not a type of correct email address. So we have to fix all of this. How could we fix all of this? As I said before, we have 2 areas. We have the front end and the back end. Let's go first for the front end. So the regular expression that used to as a pattern for accepting the domain name and email address should be modified. I have an example here, this screenshot. I wrote here some type of regular expression and tested many types of domain of email addresses, for example here, and it is already verified. So when you add this pattern inside the tag, the input tag of the web form for the email address, it should, if you write the email address correctly, it will go ahead. If nothing, it will reclaim this is not the correct format of the email address. So the email addresses you have, maybe you have the mailbox written in Unicode or IDN or even ASCII compatible encoding XN-dash. So your regular expression should be able to handle all of these kinds of letters that will be accepted. Normal ASCII letters, ASCII compatible encoding, Unicode, which is Arabic, Chinese, Hindu, whatever the language, and any user interface element required a user to type a domain name or email address must support Unicode. The label, the single label should be up to 63 ASCII characters, not Unicode characters, and the domain name string should be up 253 ASCII characters. Why I am concentrating on ASCII characters? If you are trying to go online and make some transformation from Unicode to Asca compatible encoding, the Unicode one, you will see that there are 4 letters added, xn dash dash, and the number of letters generated should be accepted by the IDN library, the protocol IDNA 2008, and should be accepted by the DNS. So the protocol IDNA 2008 and the protocol IDNA 2008 accepts only 63 ASCII characters for the label. So when you are trying to, for example, 56 for Arabic, I tried this, 56 Arabic letters, it will be exchanged to 63 ASCII letters. If I make it, for example, 57, I will have a complete exception, a stack overflow, and it will not be accepted. So we should be clear about this. User should be allowed, not required. For example, what I want to say here, maybe I am not Arabic user, I am not Hindi user, but I would like to register a domain name and have an email address. So I couldn't write Arabic, I couldn't write Hindu, but I know that there is ASCII compatible encoding, Unicode 1, xn dash dash blah blah blah. So I could use it. So your application should accept this kind of domain name or email addresses. So you are confused now. So I will store it inside the database as xn dash dash, something like this. So how could the database administrator read it? I will cover it soon. So the second criteria of universal acceptance, which is validate. So the time you need to make validation, the time you use what I said here. I mean, at some time you don't need to make validation for is the domain name already exists? Is this email address already exists? Is the MX record for this domain name of this email address already exists? Don't make things complex unless you need it. For example, as I said before, if you are issuing a certificate for your client, you should be sure this domain name already exists, already delegated, already have record inside the DNS. If you want to issue a certificate for the email address, you should be sure this email address is already there. So you may need to make this validation the time you need it. For example, you may validate here for this screenshot, you may validate a TLD through the root zone. You connect online and grab the data from the root zone that is published at IANA website. Maybe other one, and I recommend this to use the DNS APIs, and it was recommended by UEG to use it, and ask ask the DNS using this DNS APIs about is the domain name already exists or not? Is the MX record for this domain already exists or not? I prefer this, by the way. And maybe you need to validate that there are some code points is allowed and the other code point is not allowed. For example, for .masters identity studio of Egypt, we allow some code points and disallow others. Other point, we allow only Arabic letters to be inside the domain name. We don't allow the mix between Arabic and other English letters. By the way, we need to mix, and it is not a good practice to mix between two different scripts, especially the right to left script and the left to right script. So here, as an example, I check is this label, is this word have two different scripts, especially the RTL and left to right. There is some kind of validation that is done as the back end side. So as a front end, I modify the record expression. I modify the Ajax that will make the validation at the client side. And at the back end, I modify the code in order to make these validations. So the importance of the backend maybe come from maybe the client is intelligent enough and want to skip the validation you are doing at the front end. He wants to skip this. He could make this skip. So if he succeeded to skip the validation at the front end, he will start by the validation that will be done again at the back end. So it is best recommended to have the validation at both sides. Here for the allowed code points and disallowed code points. And another point here that there is open dot for, I think it's for Chinese, maybe Edmond is here, could correct me if I am wrong. It is open dot. Yeah, they don't have the dot that we used to use it inside our email address or domain name. They have open dot. So I have to check this, and it is good practice to convert this open dot to the normal dot as we used to see. For the third criteria of universal acceptance readiness is the store. After you collect the data, validate the data, you want to store this data inside a file or inside the database. Inside the file, this file should be support UTF-8. So it should support this type of Unicode letters. And for database, it should support as well UTF-8. But take care, maybe your application handle or accept and validate the domain name and the email addresses in Unicode and in UTF-8, and the database as well is support UTF-8, but the data inserted into the database is question marks. So that is a big problem. The problem here is not in the application, is not in the database. The problem in the database driver that will be used to connect the web application to the database. So you have to select the proper driver that support UTF-8 in order to store the data from the application to the database correctly. Here is an example of the database. This data already in Arabic, it's stored there, and the details of the database here, the encoding of the database is UTF-8. So you should be care about this. It is very important. So the fourth criteria for universal acceptance address is the process. Whenever you see the term process, it means you are asked to have a feature. You want to extract data from the data you are storing, whatever inside the database or inside the file. You want to sort the data inside the file. You want to sort the data inside the database. For example, maybe my manager have a call with me. Please, Abdul, get me all the email addresses of Hindu language engineers. So I will go to the application and search using the, for regular expression that have email address ends with Hindu top level domain name. Please get me all the email addresses of the tourist guide. So I will search the database for the email addresses that ends with .tourist. Please get me all the email addresses that ends with New Delhi. New Delhi. So I will search the database for the addresses ends with New Delhi. Something like this. So the recommendation here, process in UTF-8 whenever possible. So it is recommended, as I showed you before, in the database to store the data as it is already entered by the user. Maybe the user enters the data in ASCII compatible including xn-dash. So your application should be smart enough to detect this and add this data in the correct Unicode format inside the database. And use the ASCII compatible encoding the time there is a need for it. And maybe your operating system itself doesn't support UTF-8. Maybe you have a web application already published as a client, but already the font you used inside your application doesn't have any data inside the operating system of the client. So the data will be displayed as question mark. So there are two ways here. Maybe you as application developer will install the font automatically without the knowledge of the user in order to make your application working well, or you may ask the user to install some fonts that support UTF-8. And one of the big recommendations I stated before that you have to follow the recent version of the protocol IDNA 2008 for the display. Absolutely, you have to use the encoding inside the web page, which is UTF-8, and even the data that will be transferred from the front end interface to the back end interface. You have to receive the data from the forms from the front end and set the encoding again to be UTF-8 before adding it to a file or the database. You have to install the proper font as the client. The time there is no font support UTF-8 as a client. You should be able to handle this. Convert non-Unicode data to Unicode data before display, and only use non-Unicode data. I mean by Unicode data is ASCII compatible encoding XN-dash whenever it is needed, whenever it is useful. Be aware of unassigned and disallowed characters. I think if we don't have Dr. Sarmad here, there are LGR label generation rules here for each language. So published at ICANN website. So you could go there and take a look what are the code points that should be disallowed, what are the code points that is allowed. For .mas, as the case for .mas, we have our repository as a code points that allowed and other point it disallowed, and it should maybe it has the level of the registry. Maybe you are following the LGR of ICANN, but it will be the same at most of the points. So the references, I think it's covered by my colleague, but it's very important to have a look at the document of introduction to universal acceptance. Universal acceptance compliance of programming language libraries and frameworks for 2020. It's published here, and the global evaluation for the country-based and for the global evaluation for the websites for 2019 and 2020. There are also many other answered question FAQ published online about universal acceptance readiness of programming language and email tool. If you want to check if your email address is ready or not, there is a plugin published. There is a widget published at your Tech website. So you could check your email address against compliance with email address internationalization. Thank you. I think I am on time, or I'm sorry if I exceeded my allowed time. I tried to be concise to the time. Thank you. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Abdul Mane Muhammad Galila. You are spot on time, and you really made the session very, very detailed with respect to how to make the website UI ready by going through the 5 key works or the criteria associated to the universal acceptance, like such as accept, validate, store, process, and display. In each of these particular verbs, whatever is mentioned, you have illustrated the different steps which is involved in doing the things to make the website UI ready. Thank you for enlightening us on some of the key aspects of the making the websites universal acceptance ready, which is more important need of the hour. Thanks for the session. Thanks for joining in. Now, let's move on to our next session by Akshat Joshi. Akshat is going to enlighten us on how to host a website on IDN. And Akshat started his own company, ThinkTrans, which is working into the language domain and subsequently engaging in larger initiatives which are extensions of the working in the languages. ThinkTrans also runs a non-for-profit foundation working the domain of incubation and scaling, working with budding entrepreneurs, doing their orientation and capacity building to carve out next set of young entrepreneurs in India. Akshat is involved in ICANN's policy development process under the larger umbrella of IDN Variant ILD's program and was part of various panels throughout the program's life cycle. He later on contributed significantly to the Neo-Brahmi generation panel, which framed ICANN new GTLD initiatives rule set for all the 22 scheduled languages of India. Among other languages of the worldwide, he has shared his views on his experiences and the nature of the work on various platforms such as IGF, APTLD, LSARS, GigaConference, W3C, to name a few. Thank you, Akshat, for joining in to deliver your talk on how to make the website IDN ready. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Bala. Thanks for the generous introduction. I hope I'm audible.
Pretty much.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, great. So yeah, so like what as it was there in our introduction, we have been associated. So when I say we, it means me and my team at CDAC, Ms. Neha Gupta, and then the then team of Nixie. We started this journey of enabling IDNs in Indian languages way back in 2009, wherein we could. So there was this this feeling about internationalized domain names that they are definitely needed. They are currently enabled by technology. So I'm talking about 2009 state of the art, and they are very much needed. And there is something about IDNs that is not exactly workable, and in terms of variants and security issues and everything. And that time, I recall there were discussions around like we need some more robust linguistic policy around it. And at that time, we were very well supported by the then Nixie administration, and we could register for almost 11 domain names, country code CCTLDs, if I'm not wrong, covering 22 languages of India. And that has been one of the biggest set of CCTLDs held by any one entity so far in the world. So we've been really fortunate enough to be part of that initiative. Post that, we were a bit away from this ecosystem, and now we recently have started with ThinkTrans, who is also which is a company which is also in the language domain policy discussions. So we are happy to be here. We are happy to be here, contributing to the discussion, listening to the talks so far. There is a good amount of work that has been already done, and there is a good amount of push coming on for UA initiatives, UA adoption all across. So it's a happy place to be in, and we are excited to be part of this journey. So I'll just turn on my presentation. Just give me a second. Yeah, is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, great. So, so this title, the title of this session previously, which was to be conducted by my good friend Harish, who has been doing some wonderful work as the UA ambassador in India. He's one of the 3 UA ambassadors in India. And this was the title of the session then when he was supposed to conduct. And then due to some unavoidable circumstances, he could not join. And he asked me, so I was only happy to fill in. And looking at the title, I thought maybe we need a little more context to this when it comes to being able to host an IDN website, right? Because we have been talking about universal acceptance and languages being at the same level as that, like the Latin, as is in the case of internet website content ecosystem and everything. But there is a little bit of a difference when it comes to hosting an IDN website than hosting a non-IDN website. And going with the spirit of UA, that having at the equal footing at that, this question always comes and should come, that why it is a bit different, and why do we really need to have a specific session on how to host an IDN website? Because shouldn't it be as straightforward as hosting just any other website? The straightforward answer is it should be. The thing is, though, that is not the case, but there are some very good reasons for it. So I thought I'll conduct this session in a bit of a different manner, wherein I'll take there are two kinds of answers to this, like how to host an IDN website. There is a short answer that you do everything that you do to host a proper domain which is on the Latin script. So you just have to identify the IDN string that you want to register, find a top level domain that supports your IDNs, and the script you want it. Again, that's a bit of a deviation from the state of the art with the Latin top-level domains, because any top-level domain, CCTLD or JTLD, seamlessly supports Latin, right? But when it comes to IDN, you have to find it. So that's one kind of thing, but that's okay, because languages are specific to cultures and communities, and they are not supposed to be globally available to everyone, right? So that is fine. That distinction is totally acceptable. Then make sure that the domain is available as you do and purchase it. Like that's what you have got to do. Then get that IDN converted to Unicode. Now this is where things start getting a bit convoluted when you compare it to a Latin top-level domain. You convert it to a Unicode, and Mr. Galali's presentation, we saw some of these terms come up, right? What is Unicode? Why do I need it? Is it not against the spirit of UA, like having to go through a via media to do this, right? So let's deal with these questions in the course of this presentation. So you can get it converted to Unicode with some of the popular Unicode conversion routines. So there are some dedicated websites available for that. I would recommend that we use the browser bars directly. So your browser address bar is one of the best Unicode to Unicode converters that is there, because the browsers are the agents that do these conversions in the real time when a user tries to access. So that is where actually the string is going to happen. So like Mr. Galali was also saying that there are IDNA protocols which are about 2003. Then there is an IDNA protocol 2008, and there is a migration plan that is happening. So there are some implementations which are in IDNA protocol 3. Although all the implementations are supposed to be part of IDNA 2008, things can get confusing, and a user might not be very sure about whether the Unicode conversion he has done is good enough for you registering a domain name. So I would always recommend use the browser bar, or let us at that, and you are good to go. So that's one of the part of the process. Then once you are done sorting Unicode thing, you go to the DNS management console or a similarly worded thing in your hosting service account, and add a record into DNS with the Unicoded string. Okay, and you're done, right? And that should be the end of the story. But I thought this is not what it should be, because once you know that you had to do something different for IDNs than the Latin domains, it's not about it's not specifically in the spirit of UA that you have to do something different. And are we missing on to something? Have there been enough efforts done about it? Or is it how we have to accept it? So there are some very, very specific reasons why it has to be that way. And that's the best case scenario to enable the IDNs into the internet infrastructure. So for that, we need to understand. So I would like to treat this as a kind of a flashback session now, because I already shown you how to host a domain name, IDN hosted domain name. So whoever is a seasoned domain hosting person, they would clearly know that what this step actually means. You have to do almost everything the same. The only change that happens is wherein you would have otherwise put in your normal string, you have to put in your Unicoded string. Or even so, again, there are some hosting providers that have upgraded their interfaces. So in the initial run, they allow you to put in their IDNs directly over here, but immediately after you put them in, they convert it back to some weird looking string like this that is called a Unicoded string. And they do it. Next time you open a console or immediately after pasting it, you stop seeing your top level domain name as it is in the interface, and you start seeing this. So let's see why we have to do it like this, and was there a better way? So we'll come back to that slide after we are done with some understanding of some anatomy of the IDN as such. So there is some history. I would like to take everybody down the memory lane and see when the internet was born. It was born in a Latin script. Okay, so when I say Latin script, it used the characters that were in the used by the Latin script. Typically, the core protocol as dictated by IETF, that is Internet Engineering Task Force, contained only permitted letters, digits, and hyphens. The letters were capital A to Z or small a to Z, but actually it was in the actual system, it is only small a to Z, because there is automated case mapping algorithm that kicks in once you put in your capital letters in the domain name. Case mapping converts it to lowercase, and so finally what goes through the system is the lowercase characters of A to Z. then digits, that is 0 to 9, and the only additional character that has been given is the hyphen. So this is what was only permitted when internet was born. And if you want to see, like we saw even in Mr. Galila's presentation, that core internet protocols use Asca encoding. So this is what Asca encoding is. Okay, we can see the Asca encoding is basically the core encoding that was used by the even the digital infrastructure computers were only used to understand the Asca encoding. So what is it? It's basically when we humans see characters A, B, C, D, computer systems need them to be represented in the form of numbers. And those numbers you can see. So for example, for this particular A character, you can see that its hex value is 41. And likewise, going ahead, you'll see that those values are changing. So when you say D, the computer system understands this value and then interprets it as D. Okay, and that's how it works. But that was a Asca encoding and not the Unicode encoding per se. So this is where things were when the internet was born. And internet protocols were based on this because that's what the computers used to understand. So DNS servers, web servers, those are again special purpose machines. So they also used to understand that language. So typical DNS query resolution would happen like this. Suppose taking an example of example.com as a domain name, and user wants to see the content hosted on example.com, he would write in his browser bar www.example.com. The first request would go with this particular string to the DNS server. Now DNS server over here will understand each of these characters, create an interpretation of it, and in its tables, he will find that there is this particular web server address that this particular domain has. It will send it back to the browser, and then the browser will send this particular number to the web server and fetch the content. Okay, so this step is common to all. It's only about this that there is a differentiation. Okay, so internet was designed to understand only Latin characters in this part. Now let's see what happened going ahead. The point to note here is that ASCII was 8-bit character encoding. By early 2000s, Unicode started coming up and it started gaining priority. It started gaining popularity. Unicode was one of the initiatives that was successfully able to encode almost all the known scripts of the world, and that's a very big feat. But you just have to imagine, like when it was ASCII, the 8-bit, like this is a bit technical, but the 8 bits, when you go with the 8-bit space, you are able to encode to 56 unique characters. Now, for encoding all the characters of the world, you could not definitely go with the 256 character space. You had to increase it. So what Unicode did was they basically increased it to 16-bit. And by increasing it to 16-bit, which was the only way available, they could gain access to a massive character encoding space of around 64,565 characters. And that was good enough to be able to encode all the scripts of the known scripts of the world faithfully. And the Unicode still has almost covered a lot of ground, and it still has good amount of space to accommodate more. Obviously, there have been modifications to the Unicode protocol wherein it has gone beyond 16-bit character space, but that's part of some other discussion. The case in point being that the encoding that was necessitated to represent the languages of the world had to be increased from 8-bit, on which the computer and digital infrastructure was born, to something which is called 16-bit, wherein the languages could come into picture. So that's how computer systems, individual computer systems, started understanding the languages. Now there was this discussion about it, like can our internet infrastructure now support this change? So you see, I have tried to show in a bit of a graphical format what was the differentiation that was seen by the DNS servers, web servers, that whatever was designed to be a 4-lane pipeline needed to be a 16-lane pipeline for Indian languages or languages of the world to be able to be used as domain names. And that was a huge change. And then it started discussions like, okay, languages are very much required, because not the whole world speaks reads Latin or speaks English. We definitely need the people using only vernacular languages to be able to express themselves using the tools of the digital era. And internet being the foremost, there was always this need that internet infrastructure be able to support the traffic of the native languages. Now, when it comes to web servers and delivering content, that was not that much hardwired, because content could easily be developed, because the protocols like HTTP and all, they were very much flexible to that kind of change, because they were not dependent per se on hardware infrastructure. So that was possible. Content started coming in Indian languages and the languages of the world. But the domain name part, which was hardwired into the infrastructure, that the physical infrastructure, started posing problems. And the existing internet infrastructure thus was incapable of understanding these new kids on the block, which were native language characters. So there was this hardware dilemma, because why there was a so there are two approaches wherein you can enable any new change into an existing infrastructure. Whether if it is hardware and software dependent thing, then you need to change both, right? And then it becomes enabled. If it is only a software layer that needs to be changed, you just change the software layer and the things are done like it was done for HTTP protocol. But in this internet infrastructure's case, there was this hardware plus software combination that was at play. And so if you just imagine what exactly constituted the internet hardware infrastructure at that point, it was massive. That there were undersea cables connecting the continents to continents. It's millions of dollars of infrastructure, telecommunication and equipments, which are again military grade hardwares, which are able to constantly be able to respond to the queries. Satellites, which were designed to be internet communication satellites, all had been already in place before, I won't say all, but most of that was already in place before the IDNs started coming on the picture. And that was a problem, because can you change all that infrastructure for enabling something? If you could, you should, right? Because IDNs are fundamentally that much important. But there was another thing that was associated with that internet had become backbone of many services, which could not be turned off for a moment for maintenance of this kind. And this was not a moment that was going to change. So if you had to change an undersea cable, you literally had to either do double provisioning or give a good amount of maintenance gap for changing that. And that was not at all up for discussion also, and which is understandably so. Other than that, there was not one entity that had control over the entire gamut of the hardware that was supporting internet. Every country had its own authorities enabling the internet infrastructure hardware. So there was not single body in terms of hardware which will do one kind of change and everything is enabled, right? So that is where this thing started in terms of hardware. So the only way in which IDNs could be enabled was the software, and then which is totally the right way of doing it. And then things started getting discussed, like how do we do it? Because currently there are only 8 bits that are understood. We need a mechanism to convert those 16 bits to 8-bit for the purpose of traveling over the internet hardware. And then when it goes back into the DNS servers or it comes back to the computer network, it should be again be able to irreversibly convert it without any loss to 16-bit to cater to the end user, right? So there were these discussions. And then among the many options that were available, the Unicode mechanism trumped all the other available, and it became the de facto mechanism for representing the 16-bit characters onto the 8-bit characters for the traveling purposes. And what exactly is Unicode and all is, again, there could be a totally different session on this, but it's kind of a variable length encoding, which gives which gives a different kind of representation, which is again represented in Latin script, but is lossless in terms. Obviously, I'm skipping on some bits of IDNA and normalization routines, but again, that's not exactly needed for this particular discussion. It's kind of lossless for a given word, so that's what matters. So I'm just trying to give a glimpse of the potential if there are people looking at this session in terms of like, how do I exactly know what is a good Unicode and all. So this is a glimpse, like this is what you should be expecting when you're looking at Unicode. Okay, so I've given examples of Kitab, for example, and Kitab has that particular Unicode in front of it. Again, as was elucidated by Mr. Galila also, that there is this, you can notice that there is this xn hyphen string that is not part of the Unicode name as such. It is called ACE prefix, which is ASCII compatible encoding, that will come in front of every Unicode. So you should expect it. And then the whatever comes after xn hyphen is the actual Unicode that is representative of your IDN domain. Okay, so you can see the Kitab one has a particular kind of Unicode. This one is Hyderabad written and its associated Unicode. You can see that there is a difference in length and composition of the characters, and that is totally within the acceptable domain. You should expect it. Now, there is this interesting observation that I have done, and I would like you to notice, just to, if you're interested, what exactly could be the similarities when it comes to Unicode. So this is Hyderabad written in Telugu script. This is Hyderabad written in Devanagari script. You can see the encoding orients itself in such a way that after this, say, after first three characters, everything else is same. Okay, everything else is same. And these three things, why? Because it's the same kind of wording, and probably in terms of character chart, it comes at the same locations and same kind of anatomy it has in terms of wording of it. So that comes similar. Frankly, it shouldn't bother you, but I'm just trying to point out some similarities which might help you read a Unicode better if somebody is enthusiast from that. Obviously, they can go through the literature published by IETF, and there are systematic RFCs giving all the details about how Unicodes are composed. Okay. Again, then there are some random examples that I have taken just to show you what progression happens for a Unicode when a domain name changes in a particular form. So this is again another example wherein if we continue to multiply names, what kind of changes can happen. Now this Unicode, there is this length. So when it comes to domain name, there is always this length restriction. And on a domain name in Latin, there is a length restriction of 0 to 63 characters. On Unicode also the same applies, and that doesn't apply on the Unicode string. So your Unicode string, if it is even beyond 63 characters, should be workable as long as its representative Unicode is within the 63 character length. So those who are looking at probably some longer domain names for some specific reasons, they can also note this particular fact. Now, how does a IDN domain name gets composed? So this is one of the examples of one of the websites that we have already functional. The bharatbhasha.bharat website. This is good amount of discussions and possibilities of reporting various UA irregularities that one might see into various applications, and they will be able to report on the Bharat Bhasha, and Bharat Bhasha team will take them to the relevant authorities and ask them for issuing corrections. Again, that was a bit of a digression. So coming back to this, if there is a IDN top level IDN web domain name, bharatbhasha.bharat, you have to just combine their respective Unicodes to create a one uniform IDN domain. And this is what it becomes when you combine the Unicodes together. So so if you want to say like http://www.bharatbhasha.bharat, it is exactly the same as http://www. this particular string. Okay, and if you happen to see this particular string in your registrar interface as a record value, that's what it is. It's not, it looks different, but that's what it is. You can anytime check that particular string by putting it in a browser bar. Most of the browser bars default settings are now to show the string as it is and not show the Unicoded representation to the end user. So you should be able to see your proper your IDN domain name in the browser bar itself. So that should be a good amount of validation for you if you are dealing with the right IDN domain name or not. So coming back to the topic, right? We started with how to host a IDN website. And now I hope this particular interface makes more sense. Like, yes, it is almost the same, except that instead of directly using my domain name, I will be having to see something like this, which is called Unicode, and we should make friends with this particular thing to be able to host IDNs. Apart from that, IDN hosting is as easy as any other Latin domain name, and we are good to go if we just be familiar with this particular routine. And the IDN, so we talked about IDN domain names, right? So, and also about emails. Yes, email is a totally different kind of subject, but when it comes to protocol level, so email is composed of this kind of thing, that there is this local part @ and whatever follows is the IDN domain name only, right? So local part is easily satisfied. The only thing that changes is the IDN. So, and there is that particular MX entry that is needed to be done onto the DNS management console for enabling the mail address, I guess, but merely enabling MX entry won't help you, because you need a good IDN email software to back that up, and building that particular software needs a different kind of expertise altogether. Obviously, Dr. Data and his team have done a wonderful work creating data mail, and they have been doing a good amount of outreach and explaining it to the user. So if you have any questions about email, IDN email, you can definitely get in touch with them to understand the nitty-gritties. They definitely have a product which is ready to support as it is today. So that's the pointer I would like to give all of you. If you're looking at IDN email, if it comes to IDN domain, it is that simple. Just make friends with Unicode and you're done. With that, I would stop my presentations and look forward to Q&A, even right now or in a general Q&A as well. I guess I have probably finished my talk in a much less of a time. I hope that's fine. Over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Akshat. I think all the speakers have done time management very well, and they were able to complete their talks on time. And in time is always a good thing. And thank you, Akshat, for the wonderful talk on the IDN related details to make the host of how do you host a website on the IDN, where you went on to describe the specific anatomy of the IDN and Unicode, which really enlightened us to understand the depth of the things. We always, all the way started in the universal acceptance at a right level, at the strategy level, what is happening at India and tactical initiatives. Now at an operational level, you have really gave the depth of understanding of this entire website hosting aspects. And the ASCII part and the internet protocols, that anatomy also helped our audience to the deeper level of understanding of things to do the way it is. Thank you, and thanks for joining and delivering this talk and for this wonderful workshop on the universal acceptance for the globally connected internet. Now, the time for the question and answers. I think our audience have already posted a few of the questions. I would like to bring out this particular Q&A for all the speakers. The speakers can pick up this particular questions. I'm going to read it out on behalf of the audience for you. The first question is coming out is how globally connected internet is making education as qualitative learning. Any of the speaker can pick it up because some of the speakers will need to leave. Abdul, you want to touch upon that?
I am sorry, could you repeat the question again, please?
How globally connected internet is making education as qualitative learning.
If I understand the question well, you are talking about, for example, at COVID-19, there are some changes for the education platform. All of this application platform will have many childs, many students that don't able to speak English at their moment. So they need to go online and subscribe for the newsletter of the exams, of the classroom, for the lesson, and have the lesson and subscribe for update. It means that it is the time to use EI addresses for such platforms of education platform, and for not for education only, but for academia as well.
Okay.
This is what I answered from the question. Maybe the guy who asked this question maybe correct me if I missed something to answer.
So I believe, Akshat, you have any views on that? Or,
Yes. Actually, that's one of the most revolutionary things that is happening in recent times. There are quite a few global events and some local events at India level that have happened to make this a reality, and something that we were expecting to happen by say 2025 or 2030. Things have accelerated, and we are seeing some of the changes in terms of access to cheap or low cost internet at a very good high bandwidth is one thing that has become readily available even at the far-flung areas of India's geography. That is one thing which has been one of the foremost enablers of connecting people. The other one being there is a good ecosystem developing in terms of educational content providers worldwide. And they have started, like there are many platforms which are there, biggest ones being Unacademy, Coursera, Khan Academy, then edX, and everything is there. So anybody can at any point try to learn from this best of the people in the business, and that is something which is that has just started. So at this time, things could look chaotic in terms of what exactly I should go for, which is the best among all of these and everything. This churning always happens, and with this internet connectivity and many people evaluating many things at the same time, eventually the best of it comes out and people get connected. So with the low cost internet availability and educational infrastructure getting digitized, schools getting digitized, and then there being these courses which are available, this is definitely going to aid. We at ThinkTrans are also working at grassroots levels of India, wherein we are connecting the local universities and colleges with some of the best in the world kind of content available in various technology spheres, policy spheres, language sphere. We are connecting them and we are trying our best to bring that kind of education to the local levels in India. Obviously, that also goes both ways, wherein we will be able to connect the best of the teachers coming out of Bharat, if I may use that word, to be able to teach some of our indigenous knowledge to all the audience in the world who might be interested into that. So it's kind of both ways, and it's the globally connected internet that is making it happen.
Thank you, Akshat, for sharing your views. I believe qualitative learning in the form of education, it's very important because there are, as Ajay and also Anil mentioned, that there are so many languages across in India, and India being one of the prominent country to serve so much wide variety of languages to support it, is important that for globally connected internet, we need to drive this education and awareness campaigns a lot. The second question is coming up. By leveraging this multilingual internet, how we can provide internet facilities to the marginalized sections of our society? Any thoughts on that? Akshat, you want to touch upon?
I guess this, being able to provide the good amount of internet services to marginalized societies and having a low-cost internet infrastructure available, these are both of the things which go hand in hand. And the availability of low-cost internet is an enabler for various agencies to come into picture and work with their expertise, bring their expertise of working with the grassroots marginalized sections of the society, and create customized schemes which are tailor-made to cater to their requirements. That is something that is now easily possible, again, because of this particular. So I'm hopeful that that will definitely start happening, and the ecosystem will definitely orient itself in terms of providing that. So, for example, at ThinkTrans, we are soon going to start some specific programs when it comes to women empowerment and some of the best in the world models that have been practiced and tested in different parts of the world. We plan to bring it to the grassroots in India as well. So yeah, ecosystem soon. That change is already underway.
Any thoughts, Abdul, on the multilingual internet?
Yeah, I think for multilingual internet, the first step should be start from the government, and I think it was a good study of Indian government to push the use of Indian languages for all the society, especially for the email addresses, and the growing number of email AI addresses in India is growing well. So it is. I think this is a first step and will have a good impact in connecting the people, especially that 50% of the worldwide population, not even in India itself, 50% of worldwide population is not connected to the internet, and the main barrier for this is the language that prevents them to be connected to the internet. And I think India is a small role model of the worldwide population, so it will be the same. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Bala,
Thanks for sharing.
if I may add to the multilingual part of it.
Sure.
So there is this thing about adoption of IDNs and email ID, email address internationalization, and the demand for local language content. And what's happening is currently IDNs and all are definitely, there is a good amount of push coming from different quarters of the ecosystem to make that a reality. It is a bit difficult to convince the developer community to orient towards these needs because there is currently no demand, right? So we have to work both the ways. So it has to be like this, for example, like I said, HTTP easily could enable the content delivery, right? It was only the domain that was connecting, like the access to the content was the last mile that was remaining, that has now been enabled by IDNs. But there were always websites with Latin domains and regional content, right? And so that has driven the need for Indian language content as well. With IDN, that becomes further emboldened, and we need to make sure that with or without IDN as well, at this point, even if we go start promoting the multilingual internet, more and more businesses to become oriented towards that, because things are already happening on that front as well. Because last month I saw Amazon talking about that particular equipment wherein you could make chutney out of on that rock, the traditional equipment, and they came up with a specific term that is locally used. So these global companies are already orienting towards multilingual embrace. And we have to make sure that there are entrepreneurs working on language technology solutions, and they drive that need. Once the user need gets started driven, then only the developer community will start responding to that, and the UA initiative outreach will be more and more easier going ahead if there is good amount of user push to this.
Thank you, Akshat. I believe that is definitely needed. We need to embrace multilingual internet and push the user needs to the developer community to create and reach more apps in that regard. Thank you. And the third question, what benefits in terms of market access my organization can get by becoming UA ready? So basically, benefits is what people are trying to ask with respect to the UA ready.
So there is this thing always talked about. So there was an internet which was not UA ready, and now there are talks about an internet which is looking at becoming internet ready. One thing that has happened over a course of time, that internet, if I'm not wrong, I'm going to use some basic numbers here, that there were some 1 billion people have been already on board with the internet bandwagon without much of an adoption of IDNs and everything, right? Every thriving ecosystem has to have a growth trajectory to survive going ahead, right? So there were discussions about where will the next billion of the internet will come from, because not the whole population of the world speaks English or understands Latin, right? So everybody then started realizing that the next billion for the growth of the internet has to come from local languages. And that is what started promoting this kind of UA discussions, wherein UA is very vital for the growth of internet. And that is the reason these discussions are happening. And it's going to be a win-win scenario for the community as well as the internet community, which is delivering these things. So I guess UA push is a right thing at the right time. And it serves everyone, including end users, service providers, internet policy makers, government decision makers, to all start speaking in this discussion.
Thank you, Akshat. Abdul, you wanted to share any kind of observations on the benefits by
Yes,
getting the
please.
market access?
Yes, please. Let's go back to what said by my colleague Nathan about the 9.8 billion US dollar as an annual opportunity of adopting universal acceptance. Most of this money will come from the new connected people to the internet that will use internationalized domain name and email address internationalization, and the other part from the user who will use the new generic top level domain names. Why we said most of this money will come from the user who will use IDN and EI, as from the market point of view, it is you will reach a large number, a large base of the internet user in order to, for example, sell anything. These domain names for IDN domain name, it is easier to be remembered by the user. It will be exchanged in an easy way. So the future for using IDN, especially for the countries that have many languages other than English, and for the language that prefer to speak their own mother language rather than the English language that may be different in culture other than they have. That's my sense. Thank you.
Beautiful thoughts. Indeed. Now, there is another dimension for the economic benefits people are asking. Audience is asking, what are the economic benefits of universal acceptance enabled internet accessibility? From the dimensions of the accessibility, they would like to understand what are the economic benefits of UA.
Of course, at this moment, if, for example, if the government want to speak with the citizen, it will be good to reach out to a large base of citizens using sending an email to their EI address. The customer is the user, is the citizen itself could communicate with the government through its EI address. As at the same time, they don't know anything about English. So they will open the floor for this. For another example, for ISPs, I receive my bill of the telephone every time through my email address. It is more efficient than sending SMS. So it is important to receive my bill, my violation, traffic violation, whatever, at my email address. So the future and the economic will grow with the growing of email address internationalization and IDN. Thank you.
Akshat, any thoughts on the economic benefits?
Bala, I guess like there are currently projections. I won't be overly optimistic in saying that they are today, but again, for a big business case, you have to start when nobody is looking at that space. And by the time there is enough demand on that, if you are already initiated, you get the most of the benefits. So currently, multilingual ecosystem UA readiness is at that level where probably nobody is immediately seeing anything. But by the time that demand gets built up, if you're ready with your solutions, you're ready with your offerings, then you will be one of the biggest benefactors. So my answer is a bit of mix, like probably not immediately today, but if you have to make your business future-proof or future-ready, that this is the time to start on that front.
Excellent. I think we're done with a set of questions. I believe our speakers were able to provide the responses to the expectations of what audience are really looking at. Thank you, Akshat and Abdul, for running through the Q&A. It really helped. And it's time for us to arrive at the closing of the event. And really, I wanted to summarize the overall proceedings, what happened so far. Sarika started out with setting up the momentum by defining the need and purpose behind the Universal Acceptance Workshop for the Globally Connected Internet. Mohan Raidu explained the ISOC India Hyderabad chapter inception details and explained how it will collaborate on universal acceptance projects, which is part of ICANN. And for the cause of universal acceptance, it explained about some of the local initiatives and partnering with other bodies. Edmund Chuk really took us to the next level of explanation of the importance of a domain name and importance of the universal acceptance strategy in the context of the local languages. whereby communicated and expressed their needs, and it also brought in the emergence of the Sustainable Development Goals and its importance to transform the world through the internet. The four important initiatives he brought this to our attention is local content communities, government procurement initiatives, education and curriculum update, including the SDGs into the entire journey, really make a remarkable impact. Later, we had the view from the Ajay Data, that was chair of the USG, introduced us to the work categories affecting and the readiness of the universal acceptance with respect to the domain names and internationalized email addresses. And he has provided how the experienced EAI really delivers bigger reach and create a greater impact. Anil Kumar Jain, CEO of Nixie, also emphasized on the importance on adoptions of the local internet, which really need of the hour to embrace that in all the possible languages. Later, we moved into some of the tactical initiatives driven within the India, where Nathan illustrated the purpose and benefits of universal acceptance, which truly justifies where we want to visualize the entire world, which can really empower people to use any domain or any email address from any part of the world for their personal or the business needs. Realizing this market potential is also very, very critically said, and it is also possible because internet penetration has really created a wave to reach to the rural sectors of India. He also spoke about some of the key aspects such as local initiatives, which is India is currently spearheaded by the Indian Language Internet Alliance driven by FICCI, and your awareness sessions, outreach events, roundtable discussions, technology workshops, what they are continuously conducting to generate awareness and create reach. And there is also a specific set of initiatives which are driven by the government of Rajasthan and government of Karnataka by embracing the UA in their government-related portals. And there is also Indian registry acknowledge that the support of one free email address with every ID and domain supported through the Nixie channel. Later, we've got into some of the operational things where we wanted to understand how to make website UA ready, where Abdullah has defined the in-depth explanation on 5 criteria of the universal acceptance, which is accept, validate, store, process, and display. Finally, Hakshit really took it to the deeper level, describing how the website on the IDN can be done. How do you host? And he explained about some of the anatomy of IDNs and Unicode, ASCII, and internet, which really embrace the entire thought and journey. Thank you for all the speakers for giving us a perspective and understanding on the strategy, tactical aspects, and operational aspects on universal acceptance for the globally connected internet, and make this entire workshop much purposeful. And it is time for us to, for me to thank all the people behind the thought for making this workshop successful. First, I would like to thank all the participants who have joined remotely and patiently listening to this entire workshop related proceedings and events and posting their doubts and questions to get an understanding on the UA and the related initiatives within the India. Second, I would like to thank the FICCI ILIA Local India UA Chapter Secretariat, led by Sarika Guliani, Vidit Singh Rai, Sudhir Malik. They all played a very important role in creating the reach of this program to the different sections of the people. And also I would like to thank K. Mohan Raidu, who have really, the president of the ISOC India Hyderabad chapter, really took the initiative to take it up to the reach of this, organizing this particular event and making a remarkable journey, and also helped bringing in some of the good speakers, who really contextualized and make the things met the need. And also, I would like to thank the ISOC India Hyderabad chapter organizing committee, comprising Salman Abdul Moiz, Adarsh, Vidyasagar, and many more who are really behind the scene, really helped in making this event much more purposeful and successful. Thank you for joining for this entire program and making it successful. Lastly, but not the least, all the speakers, right from Edmund Cho, Ajay Data, Anil Kumar Jain, Nitin Walia, Abdul Monem, Galila, and Akshat Jain, you all really made the things purposeful for this entire event. Thanks for joining in and helping us through this entire journey of a workshop for universal acceptance for the globally connected internet. This is
and the delegates,
participants. All the participants and delegates, they were acknowledged right in the beginning. Thank you everyone, and truly It was a very inspiring workshop, and I believe this awareness will penetrate further and create many more initiatives and many more workshops and many more projects in this journey to get oriented and be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bala, for this well-said concluding remarks. And of course, you've already thanked everybody. So I'll not be repetitive, but it's a sincere thanks from all of us that we could actually do this workshop for the benefit of the community. And we hope that we continue the journey continue the journey in coming months on a higher level as well. For the benefit of the audience, in case if they have missed it, we will obviously putting a recording of this session on the FICCI ILA local initiative chapter, this website. Maybe you can visit and even you can promote it amongst your peers. If you have any questions, like we said, apart from the questions which has been risen today, we could see the engagement of the audience. If you have any questions, you can write on the email ID reflected there, and then we will be happy to take it offline as well. So you have mediums and ways to reach to us. Please feel and please promote this thing. The recording would be there in case if you have missed anything because of your schedule. And thank you all for joining and making it a success, including every stakeholder. I think Bala, of course you couldn't thank yourself, so we would like to thank on behalf of all of us that you were also equally party to the whole program. So thank you, Bala, as well. Thanks to all and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sarika.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bala.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.